Welcome to the June meeting of the Transit Committee. We have a brand new board member and a new committee member, Fernando Freddy Ferrer. Welcome. We also express our thanks to Doreen Fresca for her years of service and her excellent job as a chairperson. Thank you, Doreen. Welcome to the world of unpaid public service. And thank you for giving up your time to participate on this board and on this committee. Freddie, welcome. Are there any public speakers?
There are no public speakers, Mr. Chair.
Oh, all right. Are there any changes to the work plan?
There are no changes to the work plan. I just wanted to mention that we were delayed last month on the elevator and escalator report and on the tab report. They're included in this month's materials, and we'll be back on schedule with the work plan thereafter.
Thank you, sir. Does anybody have any additions or corrections to the minutes of the last meeting? If not, I will entertain a motion to approve them. All in favor? Any opposed? Minutes are adopted. It is now my pleasure to introduce to you somebody you know anyway, our dynamic, hardworking, and unflappable president, Tom Prendergast.
Thank you. Before we get started with the operations report, the past few months there's been a number of comments and questions coming from some board members regarding on-time performance and our performance this year versus last. And before Carmen gives the report, I'd just like to spend a few minutes talking about the significance of that number as well as the significance of the subway weight assessment, which is a number we've moved to because from a commuter rail standpoint, certainly on-time performance at a terminal is something that is very, very important to those customers because for at least one of those trips, they're going to a terminal. In the case of Long Island and Metro North, that's coming into downtown New York or Brooklyn. On the subway side, there isn't quite the same, although it's a statistical measure we've had for years. And it's an industry-wide metric that a lot of people focus on. So even when we made a conscious decision to move to a subway weight assessment, which is more a measure of the regularity of service and how even the headways are. Because for those of you that ride the subways know that if a train is scheduled to be on a 4-minute headway and it actually operates 6 minutes after its earlier train, it's carrying 2 more minutes of people. It's delayed more at stations. It has heavier crowding. It has a more unpleasant trip for people. So subway weight assessment is a number we're moving toward. And what's difficult about that is we have no prior history of performance to measure exactly how we're doing against prior years. We began to measure on subway weight assessment several years ago, and it's a standard that I'm still very, very committed to following and making sure that we follow, but I do think we're going to go through a learning curve. As Carmen explains those statistics today, he's going to spend a little bit more time, not much, but a little bit more time bringing out the salient points of each one and what we're learning from that performance, because what we want to be able to do with subway weight assessment is be able to use it as a tool to manage delays when they occur and mitigate impacts that customers see. Carmen?
Thank you, Tom. Good morning. Congratulations, Mr. Chair, and congratulations to our new board member, and good morning to everyone. Subway performance results for the month of April and the 12-month average where appropriate are as follows. In terms of weight assessment, the 12-month rolling average for system-wide subway weekday weight assessment was 78.2. In April of 11, that's a slight decrease of 0.5% from the 78.6 in April of 10. Moving on to on-time performance, and I will spend some time here talking about this. System-wide weekday OTP was 86.7. That's a decrease of 4% from the 90.3 in April of 10. And on the weekend, OTP was 89.3. That's down just 0.1% from the 89.5 in April of 10. But following on the points that my president just made, I want to highlight some of the significant changes in on-time performance in April. And this was in March, and we had a lot of questions around the IRT in particular, so I'd like to just kind of spend some time there. Weekday OTP on the IRT was down 8.3% from 87.6 in April of 10 to 80.3 in April of 11. Much of that decline was driven by the 4 and 5 lines, which were down 15 and 22% respectively. While this drop is disappointing, I want to emphasize that weight assessment only decreased by 3% on the 4 line and 2% on the 5 line. These slight decreases in weight assessment, in spite of the significant delays that occurred in April of 11, can be attributed to the use of proper delay management strategies by supervision, resulting in more even headways for our customers, even though many of the trains themselves were arriving at their final destinations more than 5 minutes late. It is precisely these delay mitigation strategies implemented to benefit our customers that contribute to declines in OTP. The use of strategies that employed skip-stop service are considered negatively from an OTP perspective, but provide better service and shorter waits as an overall service delivery strategy. Nevertheless, the drop in OTP on the 4 and 5 lines is a concern. Some of the decline is due to the fact that April we were rebuilding the southbound Lexington Avenue Express track near Grand Central, whereas last April there was no significant track work underway on the 4 and 5 lines in Manhattan. For safety reasons, trains have to run slowly over track segments that are being rebuilt, and while we try to give them more time in the schedule, sometimes additional delays occur, as was the case here. Continued switch and signal modernization at East 180th Street in the Bronx also affected the 5 line. Additionally, there was a 40% increase in delays due to track and signal repairs, and I've directed our Maintenance Away division to continue developing preventative maintenance measures to bring delays down. Some steps Maintenance Away management has already undertaken to improve performance include a special managerial walking inspection on the IRT, where managers from track, signals, infrastructure, and electronic maintenance are inspecting equipment along the right-of-way, looking for conditions that could result in service disruptions. And finally, although it's in the beginning stages, the Signal Hub maintenance plan was rolled out on April 10th and extends to the 8th, 7th, and Lexington Avenue lines from 125th Street to the middle of their respective river tubes, Cranberry, Clark, or Joralemon. The Signal Hub model calls for supervised signal gangs who perform maintenance tasks only in the central business district area of these 3 lines. I'd like to make one more point about the impact of track reconstruction projects and how that can have impact on on-time performance. In April of 10, we had to run the E and F trains more slowly in Queens because of the Queens Boulevard track reconstruction project. This April, E and F trains did not face any slow speed orders for track reconstruction in Queens, and their OTP was up by 3.9% and 4.7% respectively. Keeping our track in a state of good repair is critical to ensuring reliable service, but sometimes the work itself will cause a temporary dip in OTP. That was the case last April on the E and F trains, and that was the case in part this past April on the 4 and 5 trains. That is why, going forward, we will continue to report on the month-over-month OTP, but we'll also place a greater emphasis on weight assessment, which is more likely to reduce impact of unusual occurrences or special events. Lastly, I'd like to share some statistics that reflect the complexities associated with operating daily service on the A Division as it relates to OTP and our ability to recover from significant incidents. In the month of April, there were 12 incidents that, in sum, accounted for almost 1,700 delays. The incidents covered the spectrum from signal and switch problems, persons struck by trains, brakes and emergency, and other track-related problems. Our overarching goal, however, in responding to the delays is not necessarily to put all trains back on schedule, which is not possible when an incident is significant. The goal is to restore evenly spaced and loaded trains to a point where customers will experience normal service. This is why, as I explained earlier, while our April OTP declined significantly compared to the same period in 2010, the weight assessment measure, which more closely shows our customers' experiences, declined much less so. So moving on to the key performance indicators, system-wide KPI was 82.9, down 1.6% from 84.2 in April of 10. Passenger Environment Survey KPI was 91.4. That's down 0.6% from 91.9 in April of 10. And Staten Island, the service KPI is not reported, but their PES KPI was 86.5. That's down 2.7% from 88.9 in 2010. Lastly, I'd like to just address mean distance between failures, which continues to be an excellent story. It increased in the month of April at 219,564 miles. It's up 11.1% from 197,555 miles in April of 10. And just going back in history, our mean distance between failures, if you go back to the early 80s, was 7,200 miles between failure, and today we're up to 171,000. So it really goes a long way in terms of the health of the car fleet. The 12-month average was 171,553. That's up 4.1% from 164,843 for the preceding 12 months. Again, just to summarize, we spent a lot of time over the past month looking at our history through the month of April, particularly on the IRT, looking for what is driving those delays, particularly on the 4 and 5 line. And there wasn't any one thing that I could put my hands on that would say, well, gee, that's the problem. It really cut across a number of things. The one thing I can assure you that I am intentionally making sure of is that we are doing all the maintenance that is required to make sure our service is reliable. And if, in fact, that interferes or hurts our on-time performance, which we'll monitor, I'm okay with that because it's really around the reliability that's key here. We're also, if you look back year over year, we had a prohibition on doing maintenance during the day on our train lines. If you go back a year ago, OTP was really the driving factor, and we really didn't let folks out on the right of way to do maintenance. That's not true today. I expect that we're going to get the maintenance accomplished that we have set out, what's required, and we're going to do just that. So I will keep you posted on this. I'm sorry for being so long-winded today, but I really thought, given some of the board members' concerns over the last couple of months, that it made sense to address it. So thank you.
All right, questions for
I'd just like to add one point. I'll give you 3 examples of how trying to meet a system-wide weight assessment, you actually drive on-time performance down. If you have a train delay that's significant, 10 minutes or longer in rush hour, there are 3 things you do to try to mitigate that effect and spread the effect on more trains. You fill from in front. What does that mean? You start to hold trains so they don't run ahead and create a bigger gap. You fill from behind. You give trains runs to get up to it so they're not as far as you can, as fast as you can, so that you're mitigating it. You also fill from a side. What does that mean? You will short-turn a train that's going in the opposite direction, non-peak direction, carrying less people, and insert that into a cycle. Every one of those occurrences when we do that count as a late train, irrespective of when they reach the terminal, whether it's 5 minutes on time or not. So those are examples where we knowingly and willingly take an action that degrades on-time performance, but for the purpose of trying to mitigate the effects of a delay.
When you do a skip stop, they're not on. This side's not on again.
Oh, we're dead.
We're dead. Anyway, when you do
I can't hear you.
short term, when you do skip stop to make up, do you do it just for the period of the delay? Do you do it longer than the delay? And when it's happening, is it reflected in the countdown clocks?
I don't know the answer to the last question, but I believe it is reflected in the countdown clocks, but we'll get verification on it. But it's done to a set of principles and concepts, not rigid guidelines, because you have to analyze where the delay is occurring, what effect it's going to have, and what action you can take. Because you don't want to take an action that is difficult to implement and also creates as much havoc, if not more havoc, on the customers. Whenever you start to bypass stations, either filling from the front or filling from behind, you have to make sure an announcement is made to the customer so nobody stays on the train and rides past their stop. When you're making a move in terms of short-turning a train and changing ends and coming back, That's a complex operational move, so you got to make sure that you factor in how long it's going to take to do that, and the ability for the train crew to change ends and also throw the switches and make the move. So what we can probably do, we have been intentionally doing at some point in time in the future, have a presentation to walk you through what we call not only service planning, but service operations 101, where you see some of those principles and concepts and how they're acted upon, because that would provide the underlying logic as to how these decisions are made.
So in essence, it is really situational. You're based on the situation at hand.
How are the countdown clocks working generally?
They're working very well. I think we're on target to complete the work on the A division at the end of this year. We're having some issues right now. You'll see a number of stations where you'll hear the audio announcement, but you won't see the visual screen. There's a software problem that they're dealing with. And the chairman has asked us also to take a look at the placement of those clocks, because in some cases at the time the original contract was written, which was 10 years ago, where you have a major station complex, we probably stopped the line of demarcation too soon in relation to where customers really want that information. Recognizing some of the complexes are both A division and B division, and we only put these on the A division. That's the IRT. So we're going to have to figure out how we not encroach, but go into that area to let people know what the next train arriving is. But they're working very well, and we're getting very good response from the riding public.
The reason why I ask you is because when I was chairman of Bridges and Tunnels until yesterday, I had a bet that we would have automatic toll gating, eliminating this, on every part of bridges and tunnels before you completed installing in transit the countdown clocks at every station.
But you don't have
Should I shift sides
468
now?
bridges.
Well, I'd side with you, because I know what it's going to take the B division. If we followed the same path that we did for the A division, which was letting a contract with an outside vendor to do it, right now we don't have money in the budget to do it, and right now there's no path to do it. So the chairman has asked us to look at other ways we can do it ourselves. Maybe not the same suite of information and full level of service, but indication as to when the next train is arriving, what the next train is, in a much better fashion than what exists today. But no, I would place my money on your bet.
Actually, the new software update on the countdown clocks where you're actually showing the color is a great addition, I think.
Absolutely.
Because people have been trained to know the color of the lines.
Yes.
You're probably next, Cheryl, but
Yes.
all you have is good news, so
Yes,
that even means that you are a good manager or you have good luck.
I have good help, a lot of help. With respect to safety, results were good overall. The subway customer accident rate declined for the month of March and over the past 12-month period. The accident rate was 2.84 per million subway customers in March, down 5.6% from a rate of 3.01 last year, and the 12-month average rate decreased by 3.8% compared to a year ago. The employee lost time accident rate decreased by 16.8% in April. However, the 12-month average rate increased by 7.4% from the previous year. There were 82 confirmed fires for the month of April, down 19.6% from the previous year. Fires also decreased over the last 12 months by 5.5%. 100% of all fires were categorized as being low or averaged in severity for the month of April.
See, all you have is good news.
Right.
Why can't everybody be more like Cheryl?
We try.
We are going to get there in subways.
Who's going to do crime?
I'll do crime. I don't see anybody here from the chief's office. I'll speak for Chief Raymond Diaz. Crime statistics in May were as follows. There were 210 major felonies in May, up 27 or 14.8% from May 2010. Year-to-date, major felonies are up by 9.7%. There were 70 robberies in May, up by 2 or 2.9% compared to last year. Year-to-date, robberies are down 2.9%. We continue to work on a regular basis with the Transit Police, Transit Bureau. Carmen meets with them regularly to share information about where we have problem areas and where they can focus their resources.
On to finance?
Finance, preliminary April 2011 fare box revenue was $295.4 million, $0.2 million below budget. Year-to-date fare box revenue was $1,157 million, $7.3 million below budget, due mostly to the multiple snowstorms we experienced in January when ridership was down. The average non-student fare in April was $1.62, and in constant 1996 dollars, the average fare fell from $1.38 in 1996 to $1.09 in 2011.
Excuse me just a second. That is a very key statistic, Mr. Farrar, that in 1996, when the fare went to $1.50, in 1996 dollars, $1.09 is what it cost you to ride the subway compared with then. And we have free transfers.
My name having been called, I'd love to see how those numbers all contribute to the average. That would illuminate.
Sure, we can do that.
Thank you.
And as a matter of fact, we will open ourselves to you if there's any briefing you would want to be able to understand, exactly how we're doing all of our performance statistics, but anything in general.
Thank you.
Preliminary April 2011 operating expenses before depreciation and other than personnel expenses were below budget by $3.6 million, due mostly to the favorable timing of fringe benefit and a higher payroll cost due mostly to reimbursable underruns and higher average wage rates and increased bus fuel prices. Year-to-date operating expenses were $19.2 million below budget. Moving on to ridership, our April 2011 ridership totaled $191.1 million, or 0.8% below budget. Year-to-date ridership was $750.8 million, 1.5% below budget. The average weekday subway ridership was 5.2 million, a decrease of 0.5% from April 2010. Adjusted for the timing of Passover and differences in the school calendar, subway ridership actually increased 1.2%. The April 2011 average weekday local bus ridership was 2.1 million, a decrease of 9% from April 2010. Calendar-adjusted ridership decreased 6.1%. The average weekday express bus ridership was 41,000, a decrease of 7.2% from April 2010. So the trend continues of bus ridership lagging and rail ridership increasing. The board asked us last month to see if we could do some analysis to see what degree or to what extent, if any, some of the people were moving from bus to rail. We're doing that analysis. And also there was a question raised about doing an analysis to evaluate the impacts of some of the bus service cuts we took last year, and we will bring both of those forward to the board. April 2011 average weekday paratransit ridership was 29,000, a decrease of 1.5% from April 2010. An early look at the preliminary May 2011 financial results. Preliminary fare box revenue was $1.1 million, 0.4% below budget, and operating expenses before depreciation exceeded budget by $3.8 million, due mostly to the unfavorable timing of fringe benefit expenses, higher bus fuel prices, reimbursable payroll underruns, partly offset by lower passenger paratransit completed trips. That completes the report on finance and ridership.
Any questions for President Tom? All right, who's going to do capital?
Fred Smith.
Good morning. Capital results for the month of April include awards of $60 million worth of projects, the largest of that being a bus procurement for 90 low-floor clean diesel buses. That's one of 5 diesel procurements for this year. Other projects included 2 ballast regulators. This is work equipment for our track program. These are vehicles that ride on the rails that distribute stone and dress the track in order to maintain and keep the alignment on the surface of the track. And a third project in our East New York rail facility, which takes care of the fleet for the J, the M, and the L lines, and that's a heating and ventilation project. Projects reaching substantial completion totaled $143 million for the month of April, which included the largest one, which is 59th Street Columbus Circle project, which is now
Hooray.
in the punch list stage. The installation of security fencing at East New York and Coney Island. This was our first stimulus project with American Recovery and Reinvestment Act funds from 2009. And the third project is on the power side, negative cables that were repaired. These are cables that run from the track back into the circuit breaker houses and substations, and this was on the lower end of the R train under 4th Avenue between 59th and 95th Street.
Now I learned what a negative cable is.
Very important.
That? Okay.
That completes my report.
Any questions on the operating report? We are now going to turn to the wonderful head of our capital projects, Oh, sorry. We now turn to Michael for his report on capital projects.
Good morning. I will start with the Fulton Street Transit Center. At this point, the new 135 William Street entrance, we're putting the final touches and will be completed on schedule at the end of July next month. Hopefully, I think the next meeting goes to July 25th. We may be actually reporting on that. The steel at the Transit Center building continues to move rapidly, and we are actually going to complete it ahead of schedule at the end of August. We're supposed to be sometime mid-fall, and we'll be removing the large tower crane on the site. We are continuing to progress well with our Cortlandt station that will be open. I'm talking about the southbound. Will be open on 9/11. That will include two entry points and underpasses, one at Liberty and a second one at the north end of the station. And we're putting back some artwork that was removed, Margie Hutto's artwork. And you see some of them, just keep going, and all of this thing is going to be put back in place. We are restoring it as we speak. So that will conclude the Fulton Transit Center.
Still scheduled for completion in June 2014?
Yes. And still on budget.
This is not good for your reputation.
Not good. I will have many opportunities to destroy my reputation. Let's start with number 7 line extension in this one. I don't think we have anything, right? So just can you turn on the light so I don't need that as a prop in the background? The work is actually proceeding very well. We have now 4 contracts under construction, the cavern and running tunnel, Site L, Site J, and Site K. We received 5 bids, extremely competitive for our system and finish work. The low bid was of $514 million, was a 7% basically above our budget. So, but the rest was really bunched together, so we considered it to be a good bid. And the contractor, the winning contractor, is a joint venture of Skanska and Railwork. These are really good contractors, so we are looking at that in a very positive way. And we put an incentive on this contract to complete early. As far as we're concerned, at this point, we're still on target with December 2013, and we'll work closely with Transit on a testing and commissioning plan to be able to bring it to fruition. The running tunnels in the station cavern almost complete. I mean, talking about the concrete in the cavern. We are in effect at this point constructing the station platform that started ahead of schedule. And the running tunnels that go from Site A into the cavern that we started actually to build the inverts have been completed. And actually, the only thing that I should mention is that we are pumping, in effect, from 35th to 26th Street, the concrete underground. The Site L, this is the one on 41st Street, is proceeding well, and all the drill and blast operations have been completed. So hopefully the amount of noise will decrease there. I would just wanted to mention actually one thing that we are rebuilding the 11th Avenue Viaduct actually for DOT, and we'll just as this is in front of the convention center, and in that area we're going to put in place a new traffic pattern that will basically only be 11th Avenue southbound for a while until we're able to complete that work.
But you're still going to be done by December 2013 with a real train with real people.
We are working on that.
Michael,
I'm optimistic that we'll do that. Yes.
That December or whatever, 2013, does that include full installation of CBTC on the 7 line? Will that be done at the same time?
It will be CBTC ready, I think. I don't think we are actually going to run CBTC at the time. I mean, this is your...
The CBTC contract for the flushing line runs through 2016, but we've made provisions for the design to incorporate the extension on 7 West. So it'll be in progress. The work in the field, the equipment will go in on schedule with the construction that Michael's doing.
So the day that new extension opens, you'll probably be running the similar number of trains, in other words, until the CBTC is done?
Well, there will be more train sets on the line in order to provide for the service.
Because of the
on 7.
additional distance, you mean?
Right, but it'll be a mixed fleet as we continue to outfit the entire fleet for the 7 line with CBTC.
The full benefits won't go into effect until the CBTC contract is completed, beneficial use.
Okay, Second Avenue. We continue actually to progress well with the TBM. We're now talking about the eastern side. We're in effect. No, just not yet, please. Okay, that's. I'm sorry. It was, but that shows the location. Actually, since that location, we have actually moved. That was right now, as of this morning, it is south of 76th Street, between 76th and 75th. Just we show it right there. It is right now somewhere here, and we are about 54% done. We're going to end up somewhere around here when we're done. At 63rd Street, that's we're punching through there. The 20-day average production that we have gotten is an excellent production, and it always said that good ground makes good tunnelers. So we're doing about 80 feet a day. So I'm not asking any questions. I'm happy with the results. The 86th Street station structure, and that is somewhere here, right? We have a low bidder, but we have not awarded that contract yet. We're still going to resolve certain issues with FTA, and we hope that we'll be able to now, we expect to award the contract somewhere between August 1 and August 15, depending on clearly actions from the FTA part, but we are very positive about that. One major positive news is that our litigation at 233 East 69th Street, the ruling was made in June 6th in our favor, so we're happy with that. They still have a certain amount of time until the dust settles, but this is a positive thing. We
actually won a lawsuit?
Yeah, it looks like that.
Well done.
They still have time to appeal, but we actually, the judge ruled in our favor. So we're very encouraged with that. As I say that, I will say to you that as I'm saying that, I'm also going to say that we have been basically shown some papers ahead of an injunction on the blasting under Medicine. I'm sorry, I think it's called Manhattan House or something like that. Yes, Manhattan House. I think it's at 65th and somewhere at 2nd. And so we're gonna. For the moment, we are not blasting there. We are supposed to blast the tunnel between 65th and 63rd. That's the one piece that we did not do at TBM because of the curvature. So that's where we are.
Can you assign our lawyers in the case that we won to the Lockheed case?
I think that
was not a serious suggestion.
Okay, I'm taking it as such. We actually are continuing, and you can turn off the light now. I think we have that. We are continuing our efforts to deal with the community, and Second Avenue really surface was really terrible. We repaved it all. From 90 down to 63rd. That's how it looks now, much better. And we expect to do some additional paving between 96 and 90. And also just a point that we're not only staying within the Second Avenue, but we have gone out on the side street about 50 feet on each direction to make sure that that's smoothed out. It just was really not acceptable. One of the things that I would like to talk about today is the fact that we have created a beta site for the moment, in which it's a testing site that they put up, and I will show you how we get to that. But the idea is that we'll be able to provide people between 2011 and 2016 every quarter what's happening on the surface, and can we go through the sequence exactly how we would do it? Just wanted to. You have to, in effect, go into the MTA site, and from there we're going to go into the Capitol construction site. And then from the Capitol construction site, we're going to go into the Second Avenue. And at the Second Avenue, we are going to, where are you? Yeah. All right, construction updates. And here we have, in effect, a long-term look ahead and a 3 weeks look ahead. We go to the long-term look ahead. And there is just an explanation. Let's go to the map. This is before I took the job, right? Anyway, so here what we do have, we show you what we have created today. One can go, and at every location they can click, and they will know exactly what happens in terms of construction on the surface at that location. We have yet to build the last piece. This is the 63rd Street that will come along within the next quarter. We are waiting to get the various inputs from the people that are actually supposed to look at that. Let me just click on 72nd Street just for a moment. And what you're getting, lift it up a little, that's it. And what you get here is really, we have an entrance here, we have an entrance here, we have two ancillary buildings, right? And then what happens on the surface right now? And you will be able to, this is the second quarter, we have here a mock system, a mock house in effect. We have another one at this location. We have employees' facilities. There is a water treatment that has been put in place, as well as another area where there is equipment. These two areas are the areas from which we're taking out the muck as we're mining. And that, in effect, if one wants to know what we're doing there, just press that. Press it. That's it. So it tells you what's happening. It's the east side, and you can actually zoom in. This is the east side between 69 and 70s. We expect, we are right now in the second quarter of 2011, completion the fourth quarter of 2013, and this is shaft excavation, installation of a muck conveyance system for removal, and at all times 4 lanes will be maintained on 2nd Avenue. Just close it, please. If I want to know what's going to happen, let's say, I don't know, in the third quarter of 2013, I'm sorry. In effect, one of the mock houses is gone here, right? Is no longer here. And then the next one will be gone, I think, go to the fourth one, right. I'm sorry, go to the fourth quarter of 2013. Still there? Yeah, it's still there. So that's the last one, and then you go to the first quarter of 2014, and we're moving to the other side, okay? So people that live along there will be able to actually to figure out what happens in front of their window and when over a period of time. We expect to have this up for people to actually log in. I think there is a login piece that says keep in touch, I believe, that they can all log in. So we would like to hear comments, how we can improve on this, and then we would like to, in effect, go live sometimes in the next quarter.
Is this continually upgraded?
That will be continually updated because, as you could, I'm sure you understand that things change in the field. So we need to actually be proactive and make all the changes as we learn them. But this is, once a contractor is in place, they establish their work zone, so they're going to be much more definite. We will have work zone established based on our design plans, but then as contractors come on board, they may change somewhat. We may make adjustments, field adjustments. So that will all be reflected. So that will be a way for us to be able to provide the people along 2nd Avenue with a look ahead.
This is going to make it a lot easier for us to monitor your progress, you know. Have you considered that?
Yes, I did.
Because, you know, if you are exactly on time, we take the credit for it.
That's okay with me. No problem with that.
Just want you to know that.
No problem with that.
Michael, on the previous slide where you showed the map, the 2nd Avenue map, it looked like, was that absolutely accurate? I mean, is the 72nd Street station all going from 67th to 73rd Street or thereabouts?
Okay. The entry points are not the boundaries of the cavern itself. The cavern extends out.
Right.
Some of it is clearly used as a backhouse operation for transit, and some of it is really the platform. So we kind of show the boundaries where we were excavating. It's about, it's a little maybe larger than what you have expected, but the cavern itself is larger than what you're going to see when you go into the station.
Any further questions? And next is East Side Access, I'll bet?
We're done. This is not here.
Oh, so it isn't. Of course not. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Procurements, I'll bet.
Yeah, the procurement package this month presents both New York City Transit and MTA Capital Construction procurements. Includes 5 actions totaling $53.8 million expenditures. It includes a multi-agency contract to furnish and deliver building materials and plumbing and electrical supplies totaling $52.8 million. The incumbent, Ozone Park Lumber, is recommended for award in the building materials and plumbing supplies portion of the contract in the amount of $27.3 million. However, of special note is the recommended award of the electrical supplies portion of this contract to a New York State certified women-owned business, Mid-Island Electrical Sales Corporation, in the amount of $25.5 million. I ask for your approval of all actions in the agenda, and Lou Montanti is here to answer any questions should you have any.
All right, is there a motion to approve these procurements?
Motion made.
Second?
Second.
Any questions?
I got one question, Mr. Chairman. One question. On the building materials and the electrical contract, it's a 5-year contract. Is that typical of what we've had in the past with this?
Yes, we found that to be a good approach. We were able to negotiate excellent pricing because of the 5-year agreement. We had very robust competition, and the pricing is actually a little bit high, a little bit less than 8% from the prior contract. So it was very favorable.
And this is pay as you go. We call on the material as we need it.
Yes,
right?
it's as required.
So they store it, they hold it, they're responsible for it.
Right. In terms of the money for it, I see you've got a note that it's all coming from the operating budget. But I also thought I read that there's a big part of this for the station component program.
It's actually
Isn't that our capital program?
There's a small component for station upgrade, approximately I think $2 million that would come from capital reimbursable funds.
Oh, that's it, just $2 million?
Very minor, yes.
So where are we getting our materials for station
$53.8 million
component
is
program?
usually is a low level for a typical procurement session here. Usually we throw those back and wait until they grow up next month, but we're going to deal with that now, unless you have further questions.
The station. So where's the materials from the station component program going to come from?
Fred can answer that.
Most of the work is done under third-party contracts, which includes labor and material with the contractor's bid. Where some of the work is done by in-house forces who are coming out of the operating department, they need a mechanism to buy material. So in those cases, they would tap this for small amounts.
So most of our station component program is going to be third-party vendors.
Third-party, yes.
Thanks.
Any further questions? All in favor of the procurements?
Aye.
Any opposed? Carried. What's next?
We have some action items for approval. We have 2. First, we are seeking the board's approval for the following actions relating to the appointment of hearing officers for our Transit Adjudication Bureau, TAB. The amendment of the existing retainer agreements with TAB's current panel of 28 hearing officers to amounts not to exceed $30,000 annually, and the 1-year renewal of retainer agreements with 2 individuals to serve in the capacity of senior hearing officers.
Is there a motion to approve the action item?
Move.
Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Are you up next, Michael?
Yes, David, could you take it?
Capital Construction has one action item this month. It's located on page 7.4, and requests approval to enter into an agreement with Archstone Management for revisions to a private building located at 301 and 303 East 83rd Street and 2nd Avenue that will be impacted by a planned entrance for the 2nd Avenue Subway's 86th Street station. The total of this agreement is $2.63 million.
Motion to approve?
Motion made.
Second. Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Any against? Thank you. Motion carried.
David, the ratification of the, this is up?
That was part
It
of
was
the...
done. Okay, I'm sorry.
We have service change information. Moving on to Section 8 of the agenda. We are presenting a service change proposal to implement planned bus and subway schedule changes which go into effect in September and December of this year. These are the normal schedule changes that we do on a periodic basis throughout the year. As you know, as bus service goes up or down, we analyze running times and ridership and make adjustments. And in this particular case, we are proposing to increase frequency and modify running times for 42 bus and subway routes and reduce frequencies on 42 bus schedules. These are not budget-driven. These are exercises in terms of implementing and maintaining our service guidelines. The bus schedule changes affecting 56 routes will be implemented in September 2011. A subway schedule change, which would be the addition of a round trip on the L line in the late AM rush, will be implemented in December 2011. The financial impact of these changes will include increases of $5.5 million, offset by reductions of $6.4 million, with a net reduction of $0.9 million annually.
Any questions on the service changes? Andrew?
September is normally the month when things are restored after the summer light riding schedule and, service is put back. And some of these I really seriously question. First of all, I question the fact that there's 42, and I think Peter actually confirmed this, that you only do increases when you're going to do the same number of decreases. It has to be sort of budget equal, if you get what I'm saying. The fact that you would even consider reducing the M104 service in the rush hour when it's packed, all of those folks can't use the subway. There's an awful lot of senior citizens there. And on the Sunday mornings, you're proposing to reduce it from every 20 to every 30 minutes, a 50% cut in service. This renders the bus useless, just like the middle-of-the-night subway service, which, when it was proposed to go to every half hour from every 20 minutes, would have rendered it useless. I mean, you'd have to wonder which came first, the service cuts or the people leaving the buses. And that has not been established yet. I mean, I am sure when you analyze the June 27th bus reductions, you're going to find lots of those routes have far fewer riders now because people vote with their feet. Obviously, if there's a subway parallel, you have that choice, but in many cases you don't. I understand that the M104 runs above a subway line, but there's an awful lot of senior citizens in the Upper West Side who cannot do the subway steps. So I was really shocked to see the 104 has been constantly cut back over the years, but this is the most precipitous cut I've seen in ages.
Well, I'll let Peter provide some specifics, but let me give you an overview. These are within our service guidelines. These guidelines have been approved by the board prior. We historically have been making these types of revisions to scheduled service throughout the 4 time periods of the year that we do it. We are trying to ascertain exactly what is happening to service when we have this dynamic of increased subway ridership, drastically increased paratransit ridership, and a reduction in bus ridership. When I came to the organization in 1982, incumbent in a lot of people's minds were people who just would not go into the subway for a variety of reasons, semi-ambulatory, fear of the subway, etc., and they were pretty much committed to taking bus service. And many of those people today will avail themselves of the paratransit service if they qualify for that service. So we're trying to do analysis to determine where the people are going and whether we're actually losing them. If people are actually voting with their feet and going from buses to subways, I don't necessarily know if that's bad because we get it's a better fare box operating ratio on the subway side than it is on the bus side. Certainly we don't want to disenfranchise people who are dependent upon a bus or a surface means of transport, but certainly these are within our scheduled These are within established guidelines, and we are trying to use
I didn't question
care.
that they weren't within your guidelines. I question whether it was the right thing to do. How many quarters of reduced ridership before you decide to make a cut of this nature? Is it just one? Is it just since the last time you looked at the route, or is it what?
Certainly, Andrew, when we're flush with money, there may be a slightly different look, but we are trying to make sure that we're living within the budget envelope we have and trying to respond to the changes in service that should be made because of reduced ridership as well as increased ridership. Peter, could you answer some of the specific questions?
Okay, specifically on the M104, Andrew, in 8:30 in the morning right now, we're seeing an average of 35 riders per bus, and our guidelines are over 50. So with the adjustments, we'll be in the mid-40s on that. We're actually adding service in the later evening where we're above guidelines. The other thing you cited about it going from a 20 to 30 is on early Sunday morning when ridership is historically pretty light. The 104 has been, as many Manhattan routes have been, is trending downward for a long period of time. But we do go through the whole system on weekdays approximately every 2 years. So you see we have roughly 220 bus routes. So every schedule adjustment, you're going to see 20, 30, 40 different schedules changed. All of these are based on checks that were done significantly after the service reductions last year, if they were at all affected. So this is post-reduction. It's current data. But as the President said, we do adjust downward, we do adjust upward. There were...
excuse me, I'm sorry. These counts are post June 27th of 2010?
Yes. These are from the fall last year, and late fall.
Are we ready for your special presentation?
I just got a few questions. How many of these changes either impact what we voted on the June 27th? I don't know if that's the question I'm looking for, but how many of these changes...
Where we cut service?
Correct.
I would have to split that out for you because it includes routes that were directly affected and not. But what we have been doing is we've been going, particularly targeting the cuts that were done on weekdays.
Peter, I'm sorry. We've had this conversation, I think, a month or two ago, and I think I was pretty clear last time. I know you guys are working on it and had hoped to have something this month, but could not get to it. I feel very strongly that before, I get that the board has passed these service guidelines, but the board has also reluctantly had to pass certain service cuts. And I eagerly await the study or the analysis that shows the impact of those service cuts. And in the meantime, every month coming and getting within service guidelines, I see that it might be right, and I hope it's right. But these are things we don't vote on. We don't vote on things within the service guidelines, and we were put in a position to vote on service cuts a year ago. And if these make changes to that or put some back and tinker some down, I'm okay with that, but I want to have the conversation and see the analysis behind it based on those changes. And otherwise, it's just, to be honest with you, it's almost, I don't want to say this, I won't. Sorry.
We do understand. All the board members were there for the public hearings. You had to listen to the impacts of the people, and these were by far the most impactful service cuts we ever had in history that I've been here. I believe the next time we would be coming forward with a plan changes is 3 months from now or 4 months from now. You will have the analysis before then. We will have the discussion. You have my commitment to that.
Peter, you understand where I was going with that. If the ridership has dropped since the June 27th cuts, maybe that's the reason. And I understand where Jeff's coming from. I think his point is really valid.
Any further questions? Your special presentation.
We have a special presentation today. You should have been handed a copy of it. It is a report on our storm performance review, which was conducted across all the MTA agencies at the MTA level, as well as individual actions that each one of the agencies took. Page 2, if you go to that, which just summarizes in detail how substantial this storm was. This storm, by meteorological definitions, was a blizzard. What is a blizzard? a snowstorm that dumps as much as 4 to 6 inches of snow an hour, and winds in excess of, I think, 40 or 50 miles an hour, so you get the effect of blowing drifting snow. There wasn't a transportation agency in the region that wasn't affected, and just about every transportation in the agency in the region suspended service at some point in time during the storm for a period of time. Next slide. These are some of the pictures of the impacts on us. All elements of our system, paratransit service, bus service, as well as rail service was affected. We did not do as good a job as we could have done. We knowingly and willingly acknowledged that immediately after the storm and took a number of steps. Next slide, please. And next slide. After the storm, there were two phases that were undertaken. One was internal agency-led reviews that each individual agency, so in the case of New York City Transit, that was buses and subways, taking a look and being brutally honest with the facts in terms of where we did well and where we did not do well. In addition to that, the MTA led an in-depth review that talked about across all agencies, because from a customer's perspective, it's not how each individual agencies operated, it's how the region as a whole operated, and if somebody was dependent upon two legs of their journey across two different agencies, the MTA needed to look from that standpoint. And we also reached out to other cities, the MTA-led review, where they handle large amounts of snow on a year-in, year-out basis. If you take a look at historical snow performance in the New York metropolitan region, every so many years, it's about every 15 years we get a blizzard as defined, like I said before, but every so many years we get a high amount of snow, in excess of 150 or approaching 200 inches, and that's not the norm. So we wanted to reach out to people that do have these snow events on a more regular basis. Next slide, please. There were a number of different recommendations that were made in terms of what we could do to deal with the situation. I'll just go through some of the high points in particular. You've heard them before. One of the things we did notice that when we find that conditions are starting to become at the high end of the blizzard, the issue between running service to try to keep service maintained versus making a quick decision and curtailing service or suspending it is one that has to be made very, very quickly, not only in terms of so you don't trap trains or buses, but effectively getting the public communicated to so they know they can't rely on our system. We also found situations where, because of the date of the storm, it was December 26th, the day after Christmas, probably of all holidays of the year, we treat that one as with the highest level of trying to give people time off. But we need to be able to have a mechanism available that if an emergency set of conditions present themselves to us, we can get those people back. And so we need to be able to have not only the ability to contact and get them back, but have them go to a work location where they can be utilized. We also need to look at different ways of having snow fighting equipment that is much more attuned to dealing with the blizzard conditions and heavy drifting snow. We have 2 trains right now that have the ability to remove large amounts of snow from the system, but we're actively moving in the direction of procuring more of those. Next slide, please. There were a number of things that were implemented immediately after the storm that we already took place. We do store trains underground in our Plan 4, and we will continue and actually did that in a more active manner. A large portion of our network was able to deliver uninterrupted service on the subway side, but unfortunately those portions of the system that were exposed to the elements outside did not. And generally customer communications were clear and consistent, but in some cases they weren't timely. Our delay in declaring the highest level of plan, which is a Plan 4, inhibited our ability to have the staff in place. While we did make the commitment and did put the trains underground and protect them, that certainly inhibited us. And then we had a couple of incidents, probably 3 incidents, where we had trains trapped for exceptionally long periods of time and customers on them. The one most glaring one was the people that were out near Howard Beach, Kennedy Airport, some 700 people, and we unfortunately had them on that train for over 7 hours, which is totally unacceptable. One of the things we did do in the not too distant past, about 10, 15 years ago, It was pretty standard course to set up a command and control center right near the control center where all personnel, supervisory capacity, were located so we could share information. For some reason, that practice fell out of being, and we've reinstituted that because it's been extremely important to us. And we also, following the lead of Long Island Railroad, have established a customer advocacy person in that control center. What does that mean? If trains or buses become stranded and there are people trapped on them awaiting rescue, we have a tendency, once a piece of equipment comes to stop, we kind of forget about it. We don't worry about it because it's not going to affect the safety of the system. Somebody needs to be dedicated solely for the purpose of making sure that those customers are being taken care of. Are they getting water? Are they getting fed if they need to get fed? Is there a specific strategy being thought of and implemented to rescue them from that location and get them home? Next slide. We're also pursuing a number of actions in addition to the ones that I just talked about. We will have a new Plan 5 storm alert level with enhanced procedures for controlled service curtailment. It was almost unheard of to tell people in operations that some of the things that you should do, in their mind they couldn't do, which was to suspend service. There's almost a marine mentality to provide service at all costs, but as I said earlier in the presentation, the ability to make a decision in a very quick, short time frame and bring that equipment in and not strand people and actually protect the equipment, the employees, and the customers is one that we have to look at. Other systems do it. New Jersey Transit, very early on, declared a state of emergency and decided not to run buses, and they actually came out of the storm a little bit faster than everybody else did. We also have to have much better procedures for managing stuck trains and stuck buses. From a customer communication standpoint, the chairman has been very clear. We need to have the websites providing up-to-date information, not only on service status, but the prognosis for when service will come back to being. We're going to implement a mass call system to facilitate the rapid mobilization of staff. It is difficult to reach people, but with technology nowadays that we have means available to us that we didn't have years past. We're accelerating the procurement of 8 new snow throwers. Those are those high-volume rotary snow throwers that actually pick up snow off the right-of-way and throw it off it. And we're also looking to improve technology where we can monitor better the actual connection between the shoe on the train and the third rail. The first thing that will happen that will slow down an electric railroad is your ability to gain power from the third rail because you have loss of contact due to snow or sleet or freezing rain. And we're looking at different software, computer technology we can put on the equipment so that it can tell us more clearly as those conditions increase and that situation deteriorates when we may be losing the ability to keep trains moving. I believe that's the last slide, but I'll be glad to answer any questions. We will be having tabletops. A tabletop exercise is where you bring people into the room, you write a script for an event. The people who actually have to react to that script do not know what that script is, but it's written based upon prior storms we may have had or other people. This could be a snowstorm, it could be a hurricane, it could be a high water condition, it could be even a security incident. And what you do is, and what we're going to do in starting around probably August or September, is have a specific tabletop exercise to deal with the issue of the blizzard and some of the conditions we were presented with in the last winter, and see how the organization responds to it. The infrequent nature of blizzards is what causes the problem in the sense that people don't practice some of the processes and procedures that they should. The only way you can make up for that is to conduct tabletop exercises. Any questions?
I think you and I may have discussed this already. It was a horrific storm, obviously. Every transit system in the region was severely impacted, but some decisions were made that I question, and I think I've mentioned this to you before. The reason, the decision to suspend, for instance, N service at Whitehall Street when the N line could have gone completely underground to 59th Street, Brooklyn. The suspension of B service when it could have gone all the way to the Grand Concourse. I mean, there's plenty of underground system where service could have been run, and yet it wasn't. Are you looking at those decisions?
Absolutely. I mean, there are things that actually didn't see the light of day publicly that we need to take a look at. In both cases, I think the going-in proposition is they should have operated. We do need to evaluate whether or not they had the ability to turn trains where they had to turn them, and whether they had a clear capacity to be able to get to that location. But certainly, we want to be in a position where we're providing the maximum amount of service in the protected parts of the system, so people can still move. The issue of deciding to suspend service, and I'm glad you gave me this opportunity, is not a decision we will take lightly, because in some cases we will be taking away the only option for people to be able to travel. And it's not, like I said, a decision we'll take lightly. And we don't necessarily have to take it across the patch. We don't have to do it the whole system. We can do it, discriminatingly with respect to where the problems are occurring.
The other thing that seemed to come out of that public hearing that the City Council held that I attended, that you were sort of grilled at, probably unfairly, but it appears that DOT did not clear the path to the bus depots in a timely manner. And is that fallacy, is that going to be addressed should we have another one of these blizzards?
Well, the fact that there wasn't a snow emergency declared started a whole process, and I think we all collectively take blame for that, because I was there the day of the press conference, and I probably could have said something myself. We do have the ability on the buses side of the house. We have a limited number of what we call snow fighters, which are plows and salters and sanders, and they will plow the area in and around the depots first to make sure buses can come in and out. But then they also go to the problem routes on their system, like in Staten Island. When I ran that, we sent it to the North Shore, where there are a lot of hills and routes where even the city can't get to those first, so we try to get to them. So we kind of take all of those actions. We do have a very good relationship with the Department of Sanitation, and we do have a very good coordination role with them, even independent of Office of Emergency Management.
Thanks.
Any further questions? One follow-up report remains, I believe.
We have, as one of the quarterly reports, is the elevator-escalator report. And I've asked Carmen to go beyond just, we normally provide that report to you. It provides our operating performance statistics in terms of escalator, elevator availability. The numbers are the numbers. I will tell you, if ever there is a report where public perception versus actual measured numbers are different, it's this report. Because if you would talk to just about anybody who rides the system and they see our numbers, they would say these got to be lies or fabrications. And I can tell you the numbers are accurate in terms of their not only their accuracy but their statistical significance. But for lack of a better phrase, if an escalator is out in that portion of the day that you operate it, that has a very, very lasting impact on you, especially if you're semi-ambulatory and you need the elevator or escalator to complete your trip and you have to ride to another station. There are a host of issues that when I came back in 2009 that we have problems in. Elevators and escalators is one. Refuse, you saw the article in the paper today, is another. We have the problems with signal maintenance. And one of the things we've had to do is instead of just trying to put Band-Aids on a system, we've had to take a step back and say, is the way we're currently going about doing this work the right way that we can make minor modifications to it to get it to its level of performance, versus standing further back and say, let's take a look at this entire issue in the form of a process review. And we have a strategic investments group in the organization today. It's only been put in place in the last year, that is specifically going after a number of issues. Signal maintenance is one, elevator and escalator maintenance is another, refuse trains is another, because our performance in all of those areas are not where we expect and what the public demands us to have. Carmen?
Thanks, Tom. Let me just go a little further than what Tom said. I totally understand that this is a major, major frustration for our customers, and it is one that we will continue to work on. There are significant activities going on in this area, and I think that's why we wanted to cover this and highlight those for you, just so you're aware of what's going on behind the scenes. In terms of the highlights, what I will cover in this report, we'll talk about the availability, the numbers, and how they've just slightly improved, not significantly at all. We'll talk about some new maintenance cycles that we've established with which go along with the industry, and what the industry is doing. We'll cover our growing concern regarding public perception in this area. Talk a little further. Tom raised strategic initiatives. This group is doing a process engineering review of this particular division, and I'll share some of the findings. And then also our work within the industry. Moving on to the next slide, availability. Just a few highlights of our current performance. It's improved by 0.1% on the elevators from the last quarter. Our availability, however, is 0.2% below our goal of 97.1. On escalators, availability improved by 0.7% from last quarter, but it's about 3.6% below our goal of 96%. Please, next slide. New maintenance cycles in April of this year, aligned with the industry. We no longer take a cookie-cutter approach to elevator and escalator maintenance. We now look at a number of factors, which allows us to write a very prescriptive plan for each and every one of the units. And that plan can move us on a 4, 6, or 8-week cycle in terms of maintenance. And some of the things we think about as we're doing that is the age of the equipment, the number of the passenger loading, manufacturer's recommendation, and we look at the past performance of that unit. We believe that going this route will allow us to spend more critical time on the units that need it while maintaining our maintenance, good maintenance standards. Next slide, please. As I said, we realize that this is a major source of frustration for our customers, and rightfully so. As Tom has mentioned, if you're in need of an escalator and it's not working, that's everything to the customer, and we share that frustration. And so, a few things that we're doing that in terms of performance. We know that the public perception is negative. We know that our goals are lagging behind some of the other mass transit properties around North America. We just recently received an Inspector General's report, which pointed out a couple additional challenges that we have in that we're not using all the capabilities that we have within this area, and I'll talk about one in a moment. And also, we put an electronic device on it to actually help us several years ago, and that device we abandoned it without really understanding whether we can improve it or really get it to work. So the Inspector General highlighted that. There is a computer program called LiftNet, which was purchased several years ago, which is phenomenal in that it will allow us to tie directly to each and every elevator and escalator. That will give us minute-to-minute information, help us diagnose what problems there, and even help us direct field forces in terms of the options that they can take should we have an elevator problem or an entrapment. In order to get this system up and running, it was put on a dial-up. So instead of having it on a fiber or on a network, it was actually through telephone dial-up. And I don't know if I need to say more. It's very, very slow in terms of connectivity, and it's very limited in terms of the data that we can share. So one of the things we're absolutely looking at is how can we move forward to get this on the system so that we can have better information at our fingertips. And we will also be moving towards a new manager, a new leader in this particular area. We are approaching this, from my perspective, in much too much of a tactical way. We need to look at this from the customer's perspective. We need to overturn every stone that we have out there and just make sure that we're doing everything we possibly can to make efficiencies. Next slide, please. Tom talked about strategic initiatives. Again, this is a group with the competencies to really do process engineering, which is different from what we can do internally within subways. As they came in to look at elevators and escalators, there's three areas that they're keyed on: productivity, prioritization, and customer communications. We have to look at why we're having failures, how we're completing work. Today we are typically waiting for failures to occur, as opposed to getting out there where we, on the car side of the house, we have what we call an SMS program. We don't have the equivalent here, but we should recognize that units are going to fail. We know the life cycle of certain major components, and we should get ahead of the curve in that regard. We also currently, which if we send a crew out to maintain or repair a unit and they require parts, they have to go back to a storehouse to get them. So we lose incredible time with people just going back and forth to get parts and tools, and we're going to do something about that here in the very near future. In terms of prioritization, we are going to move forward with some better planning, better scheduling of outages. We're going to in areas where we're working on a one-shift basis, we may double it up. So if an escalator has to be out for a month, we may be able to get it back in half the time by just the way we address the work. And that also goes back to the issue of productivity, too. Following is around improved customer communications, and again, this study that we're doing right now is ongoing, so this hasn't been finalized yet, this piece of work. But one part of it is really around how do we communicate with our customers? How are we capable of providing them minute-to-minute data on what is working, what's not working, and should they need an escalator, how they can best utilize the system to accommodate their needs.
Carmen?
Yes, sir.
I noticed when I ride the PATH system, there are recorded announcements such as the elevator at Journal Square, is out for World Trade Center bound customers, or words to that effect. Have you considered doing those kinds of?
That's one of the things I think we need to look at. Not only that, but the ability to send a text message, as PATH would do. Yeah. They also have the ability to shoot you a text message and just say, the World Trade Center, the elevator's out. If you need it, here's the action you need to take. So we need to get there also, absolutely. Moving on. Next slide. Thank you. We're also participating in a consortium with other mass transit properties around the United States. Why are we doing this? Because we really believe there's synergy in pulling together our technical abilities in terms of what training programs do we need to use, what are some of the technical capabilities that we need to give our folks in the field, sharing technology and our ways about going about our work, and that is ongoing. We are participating as part of that consortium, and as a matter of fact, that came up for a board action 8 or 9 months ago. And that's ongoing. And then moving forward, just to recap quickly, we will be moving towards some new leadership in this particular area. We will continue to work with our strategic initiatives group. This is a very, very worthy study that they're doing for us. We've had similar process engineering looks at other areas within the Department of Subway that has just reaped tremendous benefits for us in terms of how do we deploy, how do we most effectively use our resources, and I'm very happy they're there to provide us with this, filling this need. We will look at the resources we need going forward. This may be an area where we are not staffed properly, but I don't think we have that answer at this point, so it's something to look at. And again, we'll be following this new maintenance system we have very closely. Bottom line is, absolutely have to improve in this area. We'll keep you posted on our progress. Any questions?
We have a very unforgiving environment. It's 24 hours, 7 days a week. We have vendors that go down escalators with, carts with making deliveries, which they shouldn't do. We try to enforce that. We have a large portion of our escalators that are actually serviced by private vendors under contract. But at the end of the day, the customer sees that as being our escalator out of service. So we're aggressively managing those contracts and the performance elements related within them. To point out one point, and I want to make sure it's specific, this issue of back-to-back versus the same tour. For years, the thought was, if you have somebody doing an out-of-phase total rehabilitation of an escalator, have the same crew. So they work the AM shift on Monday, they button it up for 2 tours, they come back for the AM shift on Tuesday, and that's why it could take you up to a month. And now we're saying maybe it makes sense to just do that escalator round the clock with rotating crews, AM tour, PM tour, midnight tour, until you get it done. And so some of this stuff is one of the reasons we had to make a change in the leadership. Excellent employee, excellent person, but as Carmen said, more tactically visionary, not strategic.
Not necessarily a question, but a quick comment. A couple years ago, the reason why we started asking for this committee report was, in fact, sometimes due to, I think it was a large New York Times article that pointed out. I think we all were aware the public perception was much worse than the numbers showed from a large perspective. But I guess my additional comment is the Strategic Initiatives Group has got to be great, and we should roll this out, because too many times when a problem shows up, and I remember digging in with the group focused on elevators after that article came out, you get a lot of people who do things for a very long time who are very good at it, don't get a different look at it. And,
Well, see the forest through the trees. You're too close to it.
I had a lot of folks in my office did this when I was in the city, over a year ago at this point, and I just think it brings great things. And unfortunately, there'll be a next news story like garbage or anything like that where you may have to roll this out. But I think it's great stuff. So
Thank you.
the report, at least, it's put out there, it's transparency, but at the same time gives you guys an opportunity to look at it from a whole new way. So.
I think we're all impressed at how the staff is devoting themselves to every one of these issues that you've discussed all day long, and you're on top of it. Don't be discouraged when you see reports in the newspapers about temporary glitches. You're doing the right thing.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other business to come before the meeting? Otherwise, I will entertain a motion to adjourn. All in favor? Thank you very much, directors.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, staff.